What's up, ladies and gentlemen? One and only James Williams Dog Waters, and I'm back. And I'm digging deeper into this report, and I'm going to tell you something. The website where you actually get the references is now down. I don't know if so many people have been trying to pull these reports that it caused a problem. I don't know if they decided that they said, screw this, it's too much information going out. But it's called ResearchGate, and this is where you find all of the references. It is gone down. I think it's insane. It really, really is. Yesterday we went over traces of underground civilizations. My plan today was to go and find the references and see what I could pull up, but the references are not available, which I think is very peculiar. I'm not saying this has anything to do with me. I just think that people are all over this report at this point in time, and it's a problem. But nonetheless, we'll pick up where we left off. We were talking about traces of lost civilizations and traces of underground civilizations, and wabam. I wanted to look at the area where they were talking about Russia. Magical terrestrials. All right. Then, as to the central question, I'm here. Then as to the central question whether any intelligent species, Homo sapiens or otherwise, has actually gone underground in the past, there's no direct or general accepted evidence. However, not only are there many such legends, a surprisingly extensive body of reports exists alleging encounters with such beings. In terms of legends, many cultures have myths about realms under the earth, ranging from the underworld places associated with death and life, such as Sheol in Hebrew, which is hell, the fabled kingdoms inhabited by godlike figures such as Shambhala in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Moreover, people persuaded of the reality of these places have embarked on quests to find them. Numerous locations have been proposed for entrances to Shambhala, for instance, with explorers from the Soviet Union and a particular making considerable effort to find it. These include missions by the Soviet Foreign Commissariat to search Tibet in 1924, and an expedition from 1924 to 1928 by prominent theosophists Nicholas and Helena Roerich, covering the vast areas of Central Asia, including the Blukha Mountains and the Attila Mountains along the border of Russia and Kazakhstan. I'm going to tell you something about Kazakhstan. You want to know about some crazy stuff? Kazakhstan got some crazy stuff. I'm talking about, dog, man. I'm talking about big old giant. Kazakhstan got some stuff, which is the region commonly believed to host such an entrance. However, such efforts to locate these realms have seemingly proven fruitless in their supposed inhabitants elusive. Let's start there. Let's go with this. Copy. Let's close you. Let's see what we get. All right, let's refine our search. Foreign. Soviet Foreign Commissariat searched Tibet in 1924. Let's cut that. Tibet 1930. Tibet secret elusive Antarctic entrance. That is what we're looking for. Copy that. Let's go with the secret history. Complete history of Tibet. No, that's not condensed enough. This dude is slugging out. Oh, that looks like that's going to be a dead end. So I'm going to have to see if I can find articles on it. Search. There's Helena. And marriage and family, travels, ethics book, later in life, death. It might be easier to find something about a person than it would be to find a documentary of a person's life and track this down than to mystic who found an inner earth kingdom. So they were mystics. This is Buddhism, right? They were looking for interest and they were looking for a place in Buddhism. I don't know if I want to pursue this. I don't really think I care to pursue this. Back to reading. That said, certain locales have attracted considerable interest as potential places to which an advanced civilization may have retreated, and moreover have even occurred reports of engagement with their members. Among the most well-known is Mount Shasta, a currently dormant volcano in the Cascade Range in California. Long revered as sacred by indigenous tribes of religion, Hall and Hall, more recently, it has also become a magnet for non-indigenous spiritual pilgrims. One contributing factor to the latter are stories emerging in the early 20th century linking it to the myth of Lemurium, suggesting that before this legendary civilization disappeared beneath the ocean, some survivors trekked over land to America continent and eventually took refuge in the mountains. Of course, the stories are most likely nothing more than imaginative fictions or embellished rumors. Skeptics would surely point to the appeal of occult philosophies during that era, viewing the narratives perhaps literally attempts to capitalize on these trends. However, Mount Shasta continues to be notorious for unusual activity, which helps explain its growing appeal to spiritual pilgrims. Relatedly, the mountain is also infamous for numerous mysterious disappearances in which people have gone missing without a trace. Then, to return to our central UAP thing, notes that the mountain is one of the most significant, prominent UAP hotspots in the USA. It records 25 official reported sightings from 1995 to 2020, and there even seem to be recent photographic evidence of UAPs emerging from its peak, describing as large light with a cigar-shaped object directly below it, which suddenly took off and disappeared from sight. At that point, in our final section below, we return to our main theme, the reason people are contemplating CTH, namely UAP activity suggestive in NHI actually having some durable concealed presence on Earth. First thought, our decision would be lacking if we did not touch upon an area of speculation that is even stranger than the material above, bringing us even further into unusual territory, but which is nevertheless a prominent theme across cultures worldwide, and most relevantly, and a long-standing topic within a UAP area. That's when they go into magic terrestrial. So let's look at Mount Shasta, and let's see what we find about Mount Shasta. For the sake of what we're doing, I see that Mount Shasta is in a missing 411, but for the sake of what we're doing, I want news coverage, because I want to see how the narrative is handled in the news. I'm going to pause right here for the sake of YouTube itself and YouTube's foolishness. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to rewind, and I want you to see something. I want you to look at this woman, and I want you to tell me what you see that she's wearing. That's not a good image. And I want you to hear what she was saying. This is a better image. Tell me what she's wearing, first of all, and what do you think that means? I know what it means. And she said that they were, let it play again, summoning all the high points or visiting all the high places in the 7 wilderness areas. So 7 high places, 7 wilderness areas. I'm just going to tell you, you can pay attention to what people be saying, but nonetheless, I bet you find your most peace in the wilderness. I'm going to leave that alone, but I bet she does find peace in the wilderness. All right, let me see what else we have about Mount Shasta and people disappearing. Bizarre folklore. I need news. I need Mount Shasta, which are tall blondes, huh? No. So we got one missing person in the news. The hard part about this is finding things about Mount Shasta that other content creators won't flag because kind of freaking crazy. You took my work, you did this, you did. You'll be able to build on top of each other's work. That's unfortunately, that's not how this works. So you have to be smart about it. Extremely smart. 4 strange disappearances, Mount Shasta. Now this guy, missing persons is on point all the time. What's under Mount Shasta? And it's a cloud. So there's a bunch of weirdness going on around Mount Shasta. Injured mountain climber. Let's see, Mount Shasta disappearances History Channel, because that will be a better source and it'll be condensed. So clearly there's ample to support what they're saying in this report about Mount Shasta being a place where people disappear. Issue would be, why are you taking people and what are you doing with them? I mean, that would be the issue. Is people going and what's happening with them. Remember, the premise of this was traces of underground civilizations, and the assumption is that these people are disappearing and being taken into underground places, or they're being whacked because they're getting too close to these certain underground places. I probably would go with them being whacked. That's probably good. Oh no, we're not playing that shit with him and his people, because his fucking people is fucking retarded. That dude's people are fucking retarded. You even mention his name, you got to fight 10,000 motherfuckers. Fuck that. All right, so clearly Mount Shasta is a place where people go missing. It's where it goes down. Let's go to the next part of the report. Let me see if the website is back up. I want to see. Give me a second. This is the interstellar travel report. I'm not really extraterrestrial hypothesis. I'm really not interested in that one as much as I am interested in this one. Where did you go? Case. CASE. I'm going to have to go find Lomas. All right, Lomas. I'm really interested in this one. From angels to humankind, ongoing encounters, interpolations of the genuine celestial unknown from Zygon. This is the one I've been trying to find, but if I'm not mistaken, when the article pops up, the website's still down. Haha! It's back up. I'm not joining nothing. Save it. Open it. Or bam. All right. This is not a whole bunch of pages, but I'm interested in this one. Here we go. Angels to aliens, humankind, evolving encounters with the genuine celestial unknown. Abstract. Throughout history, people have observed aerial events that appeared extraordinary and anomalous. In earlier eras, these were often interpreted through the lens that invokes special classes of divine beings such as angels who, compared to gods, are regarded as more likely to interact with humans. Today, in our secular scientific age, there is a tendency to assume such observations were mistaken, and that with the benefit of modern knowledge, such events can be debunked and attributed to conventional natural explanations. However, recent years have seen a begrudging interest in these events, interest and even concern over issues of unidentified aerial phenomenon. Through the lens of our space age, bada boom. Let's see where we start. Introduction. Throughout history, people observe celestial events. You're going to recap that. UAPs. Nevertheless, we still note meaningful distinction interpretations. All right, I'm not about to. Let's go. Control F. Let's do some real research. Angels. ANGELs. All right. Let's find every time they use the word angel. All right. This paper explores the continuities and discontinuities between the two classes of interpretation, angels versus aliens. In terms of continuities, we observe that throughout history, humankind has continually engaged in scientific activities and analysis, perhaps especially regarding the cosmos. Interpreted scientific observations through the prisms of prevailing traditions and mythologies. Point 3. Encountered aerial phenomenon, which were anomalous in the context of prevailing scientific theories and knowledge, and more relevantly, might still be deemed anomalous, even in the light of current scientific theories and knowledge. However, there are also seeming discontinuities between the interpretations. Earlier ages tend to appease or praise these anomalous phenomenon through ideas which modern people might regard as explicitly religious, such as angels. By contrast, in our contemporary space age, people are more likely to invoke seemingly secular notions like extraterrestrial agents. All right, I got you. Nevertheless, we can still note meaningful distinctions in interpretations of unusual aerial phenomenon, shifting in recent decades away from notions like angels and towards such as aliens. As for example, observed by Thompson in 1993, angels and aliens, UFOs, and the mystic imagination. This is not a revisionist claim that historical accounts of angels are really aliens or vice versa in the modern age. Rather, both constitute attempts by humans to grapple as best they can with the cognitive tools, belief systems, and social practices at their disposal. Phenomenon that fundamentally exclude our comprehension, at least for now. After all, despite advances in the knowledge of the cosmos, our inquiries are really only in their infancy as a civilization, and so much still remains mysterious, from known unknowns to unknown knowns. That's true. Possibly, whatever. By definition, activities in this paper shall fall under 4 under the former classes being technically unidentified. Moreover, so these are the four classes, 1, 2, 3, former classes engage in. Gotcha. By definition, activities of papers fall into the former classes. Moreover, the true nature of the phenomenon, whatever beings or processes may be really behind these encounters, might even fall into a latter, not merely intelligent aliens from other planets, which, even if revolutionary, is within the boundaries of current scientific understanding and probability, but something we cannot presently begin to comprehend. All right, we explore these ideas over 2 sections: historical encounters and modern encounters, AP area. So let's go with the historic encounters and see what they are pulling forward. Strange or miraculous encounters. All right, historic encounters. The first part explores reports of anomalous celestial phenomena that occur before our contemporary era. We begin by setting the epistemological context for such reports, namely earlier age developed highly sophisticated astronomical knowledge, which was embedded within cosmologies that included actions of divine intelligence. However, despite such knowledge, phenomenon occurred that were truly anomalous and hard to explain. When we explore such phenomenon, we're often interpreted using a special class of explanations involving ideas like angels. All right, astrology and anomalous science as a formalized process of knowledge. This is wordy for no fucking reason, bro. The report is just wordy. You could have just said, listen, historically, people have believed from a spiritual standpoint that these things are aliens, and they leaned on their cosmic knowledge in a combination with a knowledge of divinity and divine intelligences to say that these were angels. That's all you had to say, but they just drag it out because they want you to read a bunch of freaking words. All right, I view this as becoming established. Science as a formalized process of knowledge acquisition is usually not viewed as becoming established until the scientific revolution in the early modern era of the 15th century onwards. However, people have engaged in practices which would call science carefully observing their environment, testing theories about how it worked from as early as the 4th millennia BCE. Indeed, from another perspective, humans have engaged in such endeavors for hundreds of thousands of years, right back to the domestication of fire. Absolutely. Most relevantly, these efforts include astrology, astronomy, and cosmology, with evidence of celestial cartograph dating back tens of thousands of years. As a result, people in the early age developed a highly sophisticated understanding of celestial dynamics. To give one example, such was the quantity and quality of astronomical data available to Herodotus in the 2nd century BCE Greece, that he calculated the circumference of the earth with considerable accuracy, as well as the earth's axial tilt, and creating the first global projection of the world. The first global projection of the world, you flat earthers. And this way, over the millennia, people across cultures developed the ability to chart and moreover predict movements of celestial bodies with real accuracy. This knowledge was interpreted, as is our understanding today, through prevailing mythologies and traditions. Although these differed considerably across cultures, at the risk of generalizing, most cosmologies include beings which we in modern age might call divine, sacred, transcendent, given labels such as gods. Given the background, celestial phenomenon tend to be personified as deities. Indeed, the planets, names, and our solar systems reflect their origins as polytheistic gods in the classical world. However, throughout history, humans have also experienced phenomena which did not align with their expectations, perceived as anomalous or unusual in some fundamental way. The general perspective of the cosmos would have involved a relatively stable and predictable set of bodies and processes, from the daily revolutions of the sun and moon to slower moving changes in star patterns. but amidst the general stability were occasional events that were more unique. We suggest these fell into two main classes. The first class comprised events which, although they appeared anomalous at the time to observers, would not to us today, including dramatic occurrences such as comets and eclipses. From our modern perspective, with our advances in scientific understanding, these have a mundane, natural explanation. By contrast, in early ages, such events were often interpreted through the prevailing divine lens as portents or signs given by the gods. They still are interpreted as signs given by the gods by some people who have some sense. There may be good reason for such conclusions. Bailey 2006 suggests comets have hit Earth throughout history with greater frequency than is appreciated today. I would agree with that. And more pertinently, tend to precipitate severe environmental and hence economic and societal downturns and even catastrophes. For such reasons, societies were keenly attentive to such phenomenon. Ancient Chinese astrology, for example, excelled in recording comets, with the first confirmed observation in 613 BCE, which were generally considered a disastrous omen, implying something fundamentally was awry with society, and frequently influenced civic decisions. Emperor Ruzong of Tang, for instance, advocated after a comet in 712 CE. From our modern perspective, we understand comets as natural material phenomenon. Scientific advances have rendered them conventional and expected. However, throughout history, there has also been a second class of phenomenon occurrences that were not only unexpected, but deeply strange in some way. After all, even if the appearances of comets were surprising to earlier generations, their behavior was not necessarily distinct from other celestial bodies, usually maintaining a standard speed and trajectory rather than these changing in odd ways. By contrast, some observations were highly peculiar, not merely unexpected. Crucially, accounts suggest these phenomena might be anomalous even to us. With all our advances in science and technology, the key point is this: as articulated by Vallée 2008, there may be a continuum of UAP activity throughout history which has always appeared anomalous and extraordinary. I like to say extraordinary. Vallée, page 22 to 23, for example, offers several cases from Japanese records, including 3 round objects of unusual brilliance. Later, they joined together. August 3rd, 989 CE, an unusual luminous object described as an earthenware vessel flew from a mountain in Ki province beyond the northeastern mountain of Fukuhara at midnight. After a while, the object changed course and was lost to sight in the southern horizon, leaving a luminous trail. October 27, 1180, a bright object resembling the full moon was seen in the sky. And this apparition was followed by curious signs in the heavens on the earth. People were amazed. January 2nd, 1458, 5 stars of moon. Damn. They changed color 3 times and vanished suddenly. March 17, 1458, a dark object which made a sound like a wheel flew from Mount Kasuga towards the west. March 8, 1468, fireballs were reported continuously over Coyote. One night, a whirling ball of fire resembling a red wheel hovered near Ninjo Castle, and was observed by samurai. May 1606, 3 round objects like the moon appeared and were seen 4 days. Such a state of social unrest developed, linked with the objects that the government executed riot participants. Such a state of social unrest developed blah, blah. Such a such a state of social unrest developed. These objects that the government executed riot participants. Confusion then became total when people observed 3 moons aligned in the sky, and several days later 2 suns. This is buck bananas. January 2nd, 1749. Such events by no means were by no means limited to Japan. In Europe, for instance, Valet quotes Pierre Bostuna in 1575, who remarked, "The face of heaven has so often disfigured by bearded, hairy comet, torches, flames." What? The face of the heaven had been so often disfigured by bearded, hairy comets, torches, flames, columns, spears, shields, dragons, duplicate moons, suns, and other similar things, that if one wanted to tell in an orderly fashion those that have happened since the birth of Jesus Christ only, and inquire about the causes of their origin, a single man would not be enough. Get the hell out of here. The 1594 edition of his book cites the following as a near Tübingen, Germany, on December 5th, 1577. About the sun, many dark clouds appeared, such as we are wont to see during great storms, and soon afterwards have come other clouds, all fiery and bloody, and others yellow and saffron. Out of these clouds have come forth reverberations resembling large, tall, wide hats, and the earth showed itself yellow and bloody, Jesus, and seemed to be covered with hats, tall and wide, which appeared in various colors, such as red, blue, green, and most of them black. Such events were recorded as extraordinary and anomalous, causing great consternation, and are clearly distinct from other celestial phenomenon that even if novel and unexpected, such as comets, still behave in an unconventional way. You damn right they behave in an unconventional way. Such occurrences were often similarly interpreted through the prevailing divine lens, though not always, as evident in the quote above, referring in bewilderment simply, as evident in the quote as evident in the quote above, referring in bewilderment simply to quote unquote hats. That threw me off. What the hell do they mean hats? Like, what the hell does that mean? Stop, pause, let me try and see if I can find something about this. December 5th, 1575. Hats. I mean, what does he mean, hats? What does hats mean? I mean, what the hell does that mean? All right, guys, I don't know the significance of this location, but something tells me there's something significant about that location. I apologize. God is telling me something that's significant about that location, but I'm going to keep it moving. But that's wild. That's wild. The strange or miraculous. Most religions feature a class of beings known in English as angels, from the Greek angelos, meaning messenger or envoy, or cherubim from the Hebrew, or winged angel. From a theological perspective, their nature has been much debated. Most relevantly here, though, they are often regarded, per their etymology, as intermediaries between gods and humans. Significantly, it is clear that many religious texts mean this role literally. In many traditions, God or gods rarely appear directly to humans. Instead, these interactions often occur by the mediation of angels. In the Old Testament, blah, 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 boom. Most relevantly, many such encounters take the form of anomalous celestial phenomenon. From our standpoint, we cannot know whether the phenomenon produced the concept of angels or whether the concept predated and was overlaid upon the phenomenon. Basically, from their perspective, they can't tell you if angels are real or not, or if the chicken came before the egg or the egg came after the chicken. Either way, as charted by Valet in 2008 and others throughout history and across religions, the concept and these phenomenon are closely intertwined. On this reading, invoking angels to explain the cosmological events constitutes a special case within the overall divine cosmology of earlier ages. Most cultures interpreted astronomical observations through a divine lens, such as personifying plants as deities. We said this already. Despite this, divine interpretation through most observations were prosaic and predictable, with celestial bodies generally observing regular patterns of movement. In one sense, these distant deities were as remote and detached from human affairs as are the stars themselves. Okay, we got this. Let's keep it moving. However, some astronomical events were far more unusual and anomalous, jarring with expectations and knowledge about celestial dynamics. Moreover, these events were usually more immediate and innate. Like, this dude is like, do you see this? What makes this person think that I'm supposed to just be answering your phone call? What makes you think I'm sitting here waiting on your call? Fuck is wrong with you? You people crazy. Like, my whole life revolve around the fact that you trying to call me to tell me something that I probably already know. So this is how your monkey ass get blocked. So this is why people be saying I be being mean, man. I mean, just presumptuous. I'm sorry, guys. It made me lose my track. However, some astro. Okay. Moreover, these events are usually more immediate and with more direct forms of interactions with humans. As such, one finds interpretations involving angels given their theological role as divine intermediaries. Though the return to the reports of hats above, not all occurrences receive a divine interpretation. One gains the impression that in encountering phenomenon so far outside the boundaries of common experience and understanding, people reach desperately for any existing notion that seemed remotely relevant. Yeah, I mean, if I see a whole bunch of hats laying around on the ground that's different colors, I don't know what the hell that is. There are many such encounters in the Old Testament. For example, consider the well-known encounter of the 6th century of prophet Ezekiel, who had numerous visionary experiences as recounted. I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like a glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. The appearance of living creatures was was like burning coals of fire or like torches. Fire moved back and forth among the creatures. It was bright, and lightning flashed out of it. As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground besides each creature with its 4 faces. This was the appearance of the structure of the wheels. They sparkled like topaz, and all 4 looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. So it was a wheel within a wheel. Their rims were high and awesome, and all 4 rims were full of eyes all around. When the living creatures moved, the wheels beside them moved, and when the living creatures rose from the ground, the wheels also rose. Wherever the spirit would go, they would go, and the wheels would rise along with them, because the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When the creatures moved, I heard the sound of their wings, like roaring of rushing waters, like the voice of the Almighty, like the tumult of an army. I'm going to stop and pause right here and say this. If you, and I'll tell you who to go get this from. What's the name of this Bigfoot research group? I'm looking at the guy's face. I interviewed a bunch of Bigfoot researchers that go out in the field, and they're really good researchers. They collect time, wind, location data, GPS data, audio, sound. They take notes. I mean, they're not just explorers, they're researchers. But they have pictures of orbs, and I did an interview with them, and they were talking about the pictures of the orbs that they were having surround them while they were out in the field. And I told them, I said, hey, go zoom in the orb and look inside the orb and see what's there. And they went and zoomed in, and they started seeing the faces inside the orbs, and they was like, what the hell? And I just left it alone because it was freaking them out, because I didn't want to run them out of the woods. Spirits travel on sound, and spirits travel on light. And that's all I'm going to say. All right. What to make of such accounts? From a conventional modern perspective, these are often reductively disparaged as imagined in some way, either more benevolent or misperception, or a hallucination, or even a form of psychosis. Some skeptics even doubt such events actually occurred at all, with this testimony perhaps more like a teaching device, an imaginative rendition or a recreation of reality in terms of religious worldview. Adding to these concerns are issues such as Ezekiel apparently being the only witness to this event, and its method of reporting being so foreign to modern concepts of that which constitutes reliable data, which for some people mean we cannot draw meaningful conclusions from such accounts. However, an emerging strand of scholarship has questioned whether we should be so quick to dismiss these accounts. Halpern, 2021. This openness partially stems from the similarities between such accounts and modern day UAP observations, at least insofar as the phenomena themselves are concerned. Patterns of movement, example, patterns of moving light. If not the resulting interpretations, it also stems from the fact that in the modern era, we still have accounts of events that have likewise been interpreted as angelic visitations, but which do not suffer the same concerns raised with Ezekiel's. Perhaps the most well documented and analyzed is the sequence of events in Fatima, Portugal, the last of which was witnessed by some 70,000 people. So we're going to hit Fatima. And summarizing Belay 2008, these events centered on Lucia de Jesus Rosa dos Santos, a girl from a rural family. They began in April 1915 when Lucia was 8. While reciting the rosary, she saw a transparent white cloud and a human form. The visitation occurred twice again that year and 3 times in 1916 when Lucia was accompanied by 2 friends and was interpreted by the children as an angel, in part because the vision announced itself as such. In the first 1916 visitation, the children were described as playing near a cave when they heard the rumbling of a powerful wind, and a white light appeared. It was gliding through the valley above the treetops, and the light was a youth of admirable beauty, who came close to them and said, "I am an angel of peace." He taught the children a prayer and then disappeared. Then, in 1917, began a different sequence of encounters that would draw increased crowds, and due in part due to elements of prophecy and prediction involved. On May 13th, the three children were watching sheep when, as Lucia reported to her parish priest, we saw a light flashing. Turning to flee in terror, they saw a woman atop a oak tree, clothed in white and gold, who asked them to come. Who asked them, quote, to come here, who asked them to, quote, come here every month for the next 6 months. They returned as promised, accompanied by 50 people, June 13th, and by 4,500 people, July 13th. Whereupon, at this third apparition, the crowd, according to an eyewitness, quoted shortly thereafter in his whereupon at this third apparition, the crowd, according to an eyewitness, quoted, that is stupid, shortly thereafter in a skeptical, unsigned report in the secular daily, what the hell, heard a noise like a peal of a trumpet, but did not have the privilege of hearing and seeing the saint, which was reserved for Lucille alone. On August 13th, even though the children had been temporarily jailed by a local official of the aggressively anti-clerical First Portuguese Republic, 18,000 came and watched as a cloud descended onto the oak tree and powdered the air, which seemed snowy. Then, in the sky next to the sun, new clouds turned excessively bright red, the color of blood, pink, and yellow. By September 13th, the audience had risen to 30,000, accumulating at 70,000 for the apparition on the 13th of October. The reported events in October are remarkable for many reasons. To begin with, they feature phenomenon that bear resemblance to Ezekiel's account, including extraordinary colors of light, unpredictable patterns and movements, some kind of moving object, and being interpreted as an angel. The account of the eyewitnesses, Manuel Pereira de Silva, written in the letter posted on October 14th, is representative. The sun suddenly appeared with a well-defined circumference. It drew near also to the height of the clouds and began spinning around. I don't know what that word is. Vertiginously. Screw that. It drew near almost to the height of the clouds and began spinning around like a wheel of condensed fire. It did so with some interruptions for more than 8 minutes. Everything remained somewhat dark, and the features of each person were yellowed, so their countenance were changed. Everyone knelt into the mud. And here's why did they keep adding it? Everyone knelt in the mud. Let me go back to the quotes. A singular spectacle, unbelievable for anyone who did not witness it. The star, he wrote, reminded me of a polished, frosted silver plate, and it was possible to stare directly at it without least effort. The sun now trembled and undertook unheard of burlesque movements. Beyond all cosmic laws, the sun danced according to the typical expressions of the peasants. Man, you could whoever wrote this is just like an asshole. Like the reporter was an ass. Of particular significance with this event are the sheer number of people involved, A. B, that it was predicted in advance, C, that because of A and B, there is some actual empirical photographic evidence, albeit of poor quality. In combination, these factors neutralize criticisms normally leveled at such events. To begin with, A means it's harder, and indeed arguably illegitimate, to attribute observations to misperception or hallucination. Although the notion of mass hysteria appears to have a genuine basis. Example, shared emotions due to network effects. The idea of mass hallucinations has not been substantiated, and most analysts of the event, even ardent skeptics, believe some strange celestial phenomenon genuinely occurred. The latter point is supported by C, given the analysis of surviving photographs do indicate some unusual data. Duller, 2021, for instance, suggests the shadows and reflections reveal two soft light sources emerging from a rather dark background, one seen as a pale sun and another overhead fuzzy as if fuzzy and as soft bright. The latter likely being caused by a clear cloud blurred the shadows of the weak sun. This warm source, uncannily moon-like, was also able to cast distinct shadows on slopy surfaces under objects. Eventually, these shadows helped us to estimate the height of the sun at 30 degrees, lower than the expected 42 degrees. Therefore, the directly observed source could not have been the sun. Even if unusual celestial phenomenon are granted, though some modern scholars have sought to play the debunker, singularly determined to arrive at a naturalistic explanation, apparently unconcerned that their reductive theorizing does not account for the totality of the evidence. Campbell, 1989, for example, confidently asserted, in fact, there is a meteorological explanation. All the phenomena reported are known to be produced by fine dust in the atmosphere. Specifically, a fine cloud of dust traveled in the upper airstream, possibly caused by a volcanic explosion. Similarly, Wyrowski attributed them to sunlight passing through clouds of vibrating charged ice crystals, generating a shimmering halo of light known as a sundog. However, while such explanations could explain some of the phenomenon, they do not account for the totality of observations. For example, sundogs are stationary. The observers at Fatima reported the disk moving, often in dramatic ways, including when it seemingly plunged downward in a zigzag fashion towards the earth and horrified the spectators. Valet, 2008. As such explanations, I'm going to look up Valet and see what he has to say about this. Such explanations are at best incomplete and seemingly represent efforts of science who has decided the events must be conventionally meteorologically explained. Indeed, the assumptions is admitted by Kulzek, 2019, who advances various unlikely scenarios, including a superfluous use of lasers unknown by people. However, he acknowledges in a very question beginning way, I have to admit that some aspects of these events cannot be explained by contemporary science, but this is caused by the limitation of our knowledge rather than by any supernatural character or observed events. For the purpose of this analysis, I made an assumption that whatever happened there had to be subjected to the laws of nature. These attitudes are common among those who seek to debunk such events, to deny anything extraordinary happened at all, and explain whatever did occur by natural factors. For example, Ranford, 2013, dismissively writes, "We can start by noting, quote, we can start by noting that we know for certain what did not happen. The sun did not really dance in the sky." He then offers various mundane, simplistic explanations from sundogs to mad suggestion. However, these skeptical accounts fail to account for the complexities of Fatima. Not least the crucial fact that events were foretold. In Campbell's 1989 explanation of the cloud of dust, he notes that such phenomena are relatively rare. The very last line of the paper states, "It was the most remarkable coincidence that the cloud passed over Fatima at the very time a miracle was predicted." This is quite the understatement, and indeed would be a miraculous coincidence in every sense of the word. That said, perhaps that this was the concluding sentence of his paper implies Campbell was aware of how unlikely this was, and perhaps was even stubbornly undercutting his own debunking attempts. As such, rather than simply dismissing events like Fatima, even some skeptics may admit that such occurrences may represent genuine anomalous phenomena that humans even now struggle to understand. Indeed, people continue to have such experiences, even if their interpretive lens is less likely to be overtly divine, as our second main part explores. That was the first part, talking about angels and UFOs and strange and miraculous events. Now I want to go and I want to hear what Homeboy has to say about the case of Fatima. Where did he go? Excuse me, Valet on Fatima.
Dr. Jacques Vallée has collected purported metal debris from UFO cases dating as far back as 1947 that experts are analyzing in a state-of-the-art laboratory.
The breakthrough has come with the invention of a machine that enables us to look at the atomic structure. And at that point, the atomic structure is impossible to fake.
This device is a multi-parameter ion beam imager.
Dr. Gary Nolan, a Stanford microbiologist, is using a revolutionary three-dimensional imaging device to analyze the samples right down to their individual atoms. When Dr. Nolan placed some of the fragments in the vacuum chamber of his instrument, he was astonished to find their composition was unlike any known metal.
Just putting it together again at the atomic scale, we're building our world with 80 elements. Somebody else is building the world with 253 different isotopes. I intend to use the information to try to build something, to try to understand a physical principle that we don't know today.
This material was manufactured. It's not natural. It's not natural to the materials that we have around us in the lab or on the earth. It does not mean that it was necessarily made someplace in outer space. It just means that it was manufactured specially for a particular purpose that we don't understand.
Keep on deep diving into these reports. If I was to surmise what I've gotten from this right here, right now, is that throughout history, there's been events that can be perceived as UAP or UFO encounters or they can be interpreted as divine encounters with angels or celestial bodies or celestial beings. What I'm seeing is there's a strong bias in the scientific community, which we've already known that, against anything that's religious or anything that will say is celestial, and they lean towards simply it's a scientific explanation. We know all these things to be true. But what I find interesting is the accounts that are laid out of things happening over the years. We're talking about from 989 CE, 1180, 1458, 1468, 1606, 1749, and they're all over the world. We talk about it in China. There's stuff in Russia. There's stuff in Germany. So these encounters have been happening for a very long time. Whether a person believes there are divine encounters from God and angels, or Lucifer and his fallen angels, which that's where I would lean towards, but they're undeniable. And that's the thing. And that's what science is having to face. Now, the overarching argument is, are these things coming from in the earth, or are they coming from away from the earth? I'll propose this to you. I think that there's never one simple answer to anything. I believe there's civilizations inside the earth. It has to be things that live inside of our earth. I mean, based on what we saw about the water inside of the earth, which is 3 times the amount of water that's on top of the planet, there's definitely something in there. Would they, if they have been here for a long time and they were advanced civilizations, would they have all kind of stuff that they've come to understand? Absolutely. I also believe that our governments, not just the U.S. government, but our governments have access to advanced technology. I think a certain percentage of what you see in the skies is from governments, whether it be the Russian, Chinese, or U.S. government. And then I know without a doubt God sends signs in the stars in the skies, because I've seen some of them. And so what ends up happening is people try and narrow it down to one thing and close off the possibility to other things. I think that's where the biggest mistake is made, when you narrow it down to one thing, because for argument's sake, you want to definitively say it is this. That's the one thing that you can't do. You can't definitively say it's anything. And what I mean by that is there's supporting evidence for all things. And that's probably why he talks about the theory of everything. That was a lesson I learned from really researching cryptids. And you see it now. People want to take the cryptid subject and isolate it down to one thing. Bigfoot is flesh and blood, or Dogman is flesh and blood. There's evidence that supports that it's not just that. And so you want to negate all the rest of the evidence. Now, you can choose to believe and have whatever belief system you want. That is what life is about. But that doesn't mean you throw everything out of the window. That doesn't mean that you just say, okay, none of that's true. And therein lies the problem. People are trying to create a belief system and force it on everybody else. And that's human nature. You know what I'm saying? That truly is human nature. Especially when it pertains to systems of belief that don't benefit everybody. Just ram stuff down their throat and only benefit certain groups of people. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you guys in the next video. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you. Peace out. Peace out. Peace out. Peace out. Peace out.